you make more than $1 million a year, you should pay at least the same percentage of your income in taxes as middle-class families do. If, on the other hand, you make less than $250,000 a year, like 98% of American families do, your taxes shouldn't go up.
If you take a look at our budget, it is a huge contrast. To be really quick, the contrast is this. We actually deal with the problem. We actually see the debt crisis coming. We see the drivers of the debt, and we deal with it.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. That was, of course, President Obama making the case for his so-called Buffett rule, and Congressman Paul Ryan explaining his budget plan. And we are debating both proposals with Congressman Michael Grimm of Staten Island and Brooklyn and Congresswoman Rep Maloney of Manhattan and Queens. Congressman, let me start with you. I think every side would agree that by slashing the spending that Congressman Ryan is doing, that you're tackling the debt problem. But also, isn't it irresponsible to cut so much in taxes afterwards? In addition, rather, I should say, to all of the cutting of spending?
Well, I don't think we're actually cutting revenue. See, it really depends on what the revenue is going to be. I believe.
I mean, you're cutting about $5 trillion in revenue.
If you simplify the tax code and you broaden the base, we should have more revenue. We're talking about $5 trillion in debt reduction. We should be lowering the debt. And I just wanted to make a point from before. If the president's plan is so good, then why did in the House, when we put his budget for a vote on the floor, he didn't receive not one vote, not one yes vote, not from one Democrat. No one voted for his budget. So obviously, it's just not a good plan. And just to keep it in perspective, this past month, March, was the halfway point for the fiscal year 2012. We borrowed $792 billion. We took in revenue, $693. That's almost $100 billion shortfall, which means for the first time in our history, we're borrowing more than half of government spending. We have a massive crisis coming, and the president's budget, Buffett rule included, doesn't address that problem. We have a spending problem, not a revenue problem.
Okay, Congresswoman?
Well, I would say the Ryan budget is absolutely indefensible, and they really balance the budget or move the budget forward on the backs of the poor. 62% of the cuts are going into the safety net. It ends Medicare as we know it, turning it into a voucher program. It turns Medicaid into a block grant program along with food stamps, slashes it by $800 billion, Pell Grants, every single area, and gives more tax cuts to millionaires. This is unfair. Under the Clinton era, we had a balanced approach where you raised revenue, so you had cuts, you went forward, but you can't just cut yourself to prosperity. It's sort of a Robin Hood, reverse Robin Hood. They're taking everything from the middle class and giving it to the rich with more and more tax breaks to multimillionaires that haven't even asked for it.
If I might just ask a question on something you just mentioned. The trustees of Medicare are saying it's going broke, whether it's 9, 12 years. They don't know exactly when, but it's definitely on a path to bankruptcy. What is the Democratic plan to save Medicare?
The Democratic plan is the health care plan that we passed.
It cut $500 billion from Medicare Advantage.
It cuts and restructures Medicare for the 21st century, and the Republicans are trying to dismantle the entire health care plan that the president passed that has savings and restructuring in it for Medicare. That was our plan for Medicare.
Okay.
We hope to keep it in place.
The problem is, when you put Obamacare into the budget, the president's budget is adding $11 trillion to our debt, and will double our debt over time. It simply isn't sustainable. I mean, I think you have some ideas. There's just no substance behind it. It's talking points that says we're going to do this, this, and this.
Says it will help in our budgets going forward.
Actually, that's not true. We only have about a minute and a half left. Looking forward, all of the prognosticators are saying that this is not particularly looking good when it comes to gridlock. What suggestions would you individually have to the leaders of your individual parties to break through the gridlock, because both of you acknowledge that the debt crisis can't go on? So with about a minute and a half left, let me start with you, Congresswoman. What suggestions would you have, taking into account the opinions of those of your colleagues on the other side?
Well, I think you need to get into a room and discuss it and compromise and move forward. That's how it's always worked. You have You all in many ways believe in the same thing. It's a matter of degrees. Democrats do not want to abolish Medicare. It's a program that's worked well. We don't want to abolish Medicaid, and we don't want food stamps. It would mean many people and thousands of people would lose food stamps and Medicaid protection if the Ryan Republican plan goes forward. So we need to work on that. And why not close all the corporate loopholes? Why not? That would be another way to get revenue into the budget. But why not pass the Reagan plan or the Buffett plan or the Boehner plan? We could name it after any of them. What is so unfair about asking millionaires, billionaires, zillionaires to pay the same rate as their secretaries or a firefighter or a teacher?
You have the last word, about 30 seconds.
And again, the Buffett rule doesn't address the problem. It's a penny in a bucket compared to the massive debt that we have. But what I would say is, let's start where there is common ground. Both parties agree, for example, that we have a tax system that's broken. It is way too difficult. So it's complex. Let's make it simpler. Let's make it fairer. So I think there's common ground. That's where we should start. But lastly, to say that the Ryan plan wants to destroy Medicare or Medicaid, it just simply isn't true. The reality is the plan put forward for the president's health care plan, Obamacare, doesn't help fix the problems with Medicare or Medicaid. It ignores them, which means it will go bankrupt if we do nothing. So we can't afford to do nothing. I'm willing to sit at the table, work with Congressman Maloney and whomever else, and I know that all of our hearts are in the right place. We want to get to the same place. It's a matter of how we get there, and I think we'll eventually get there in spite of all the difficulties.
Well, I see you nodding, so at least we've accomplished something. Thanks so much to the two of you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Josh.
It's time for a break. When we come back, Curtis Lewa and Herson Barrero